the Great Recession, as we call the crises that started in 2007, 2008 officially, as opposed to the Great Depression, although it could become a depression. The Great Recession inevitably raises the question as to what can we do about bringing life, new life, to the economies of cities. In some ways, urban economies are shrinking in the same way that national economies are shrinking because of this recession. I think urban economies are better set up to handle this. One key strategy that I think can be implemented now, we don't need many complications, is the notion of relocalizing production. Do we really have to get elementary tables, elementary chairs, elementary bookshelves from China? No, we can do that locally. We will find the talent to make that, the carpenters who know how to make that. So this notion of relocalizing production. Step further, why not also urbanizing at least some of agriculture, of food production? New York City is today the proud owner, and it announces it on its website, this is the city government website, of 112 farms, urban farms, in the city of New York. This is fantastic. This will not meet all the food needs of the city, but it is a point in a trajectory, and the trajectory keeps moving ahead. So when this started 10 years ago, it was one thing. Today, only 10 years later, urban farms are serving restaurants. It then also means that restaurants now are seasonal. They don't try to serve the same vegetables, the same fruits, 12 months of the year. So those bad Dutch potatoes, the Dutch tomatoes that are tasteless, why do you need such tomatoes the whole year round? You might as well grow locally some tomatoes and have them when they can be harvested. So the urban farming is, I think, a very, very wonderful intervention. Now, if I were a designer, if I were an architect, if I were somebody who's trying to renovate a neighborhood, I would consider that. I would say, okay, where does the urban farming fit in here? Now, one part of that urban farming is that it connects to the ring, this is in the case of New York, different cities, different stories, to the ring of farming that is right around the city. There is now a whole bit of regional farming that has reoriented itself to horticulture and certain types of fruit, rather than what they were doing before, potatoes and something like that, the same stuff. Now there is a real recovery of growing all kinds of things, different types of horticulture, which is far more complex farming than potato farming. And it has meant, so one thinks of this really as the urbanizing of farming, of agriculture, which I think is wonderful. These are all beginnings. These are little things. They will never replace fully the corporatized economy. But what we must do is begin to take down, to relocalize at least some of the elements of that corporatized economy and bring them down into our localities. Taken seriously, it's an invitation to architects, to urban planners, to infrastructure people to think about this. And you can connect it with extraordinarily innovative environmental practices. For instance, just to mention an example, to clean water. Cities have a lot of dirty water. I don't mean dirty water as dirty water that comes from bathrooms, etc. I mean contaminated water, toxic water, algae. Algae are the best way to clean up water, not chemicals. You marry them with a little reactor, it activates, and you have clean water. You take it a step further. We now know that there is a bacterium that if put, this is discoveries by biologists, if put in dirty waters, brown dirty, in organic dirty waters, what we produce in the kitchen, in restaurants, in bathrooms, it actually generates a molecule of a kind of plastic, resistant and durable, but biodegradable. Plastics we need everywhere. What this means is that what the cities tend to produce in vast quantities, and that generates a massive problem for cities. Now we use trucks and all kinds of things to carry that brown organic waste out of the city, becomes a resource to make a component, an input, plastic, that we need for everything. But it comes with a difference. It's biodegradable. So when you begin to take these, and there is a list of these discoveries that biologists have made, that if you bring those to bear on cities and all their different types of waste that they have, you wind up with reinvented, if you want, chains. What is now a negative, a burden, something that needs to be trucked out, needs to be buried in landfills, etc., suddenly becomes part of a productive cycle. And you could actually export it to other places who don't have enough of that dirty water but still need plastic. Now, if you are an architect, if you're an urbanist, and you're thinking about the city in terms of also these different types of knowledges that are not urban per se, but that can be urbanized, the task of designing a city, the task of redesigning a part of a city changes. It really is a different semantic space. You have to bring in all kinds of different knowledges. And I think that is now the frontier for designing cities. And there's sort of an irony in what I say, that in order to design a good city or a good area of a city, you have to keep urbanizing technologies, biological knowledge, etc., etc. It is one way of thinking about the project, so that you don't feel that it is a list of obligations, but it actually articulates around a particular set of very powerful vectors, one of which is this notion of urbanizing.